Imagine a toy that looks harmless but actually hides a darkness that can destroy everything you know. Welcome to the mysterious world of The Devil's Toy, a story that began with an innocent smile but quickly turned into a nightmare. What happens when children start playing with things that are not meant for their hands? What power lurks behind this toy, and what dire consequences await those who dare to get close to it? In this video, we will uncover the dark secrets associated with this toy and tell the stories of those who have fallen victim to it. Prepare for a journey into a world where innocence collides with evil, and where every game can be your last. There was a new resident on the shelf of knickknacks, a figurine of some deity. The idol figure was carved from stone and looked unusual. There were ballerinas, glass poodles, snowballs, in a word, all sorts of junk on this shelf. The house was home to a close-knit family who had moved here 5 years ago. The house itself stood on the outskirts of the village, which used to be a dacha SNT. The neighbors were all decent businessmen and employees of the city administration. One morning the neighbors noticed a strange picture. Despite the weekday and late morning, the owner's cars were parked in the yard, the gate was open, and there was a suspicious silence. The thing is that they had 2 huge dogs, which would definitely bark at strangers. Wary neighbors entered the yard and rushed out. One of the men started calling the police. "What is it?" a woman from the house across the street asked. "Your face is gone. Something terrible happened there." "It smells of death," replied the neighbor quietly. An hour later, the neighborhood was like a hive of activity, with many police officers flooding the area. A family had been brutally murdered, and a child, a daughter, was missing. Earlier, Marina was making lunch and waiting for the kids from school. She and Ivan have a first-grade daughter and a ninth-grade daughter. Both ride the school bus that takes them to the barrier in the settlement. Mila, the eldest, had entered the fine age of resentment on and off. She was now interested in boys, partying, and cosmetics, not in her studies and family. Marina understood everything perfectly well and tried to be patient. The younger Lilia was a rather withdrawn child, immersed in herself. The girl went to art school and she did well. She liked studying at school and she had friends too. The father of the family, Ivan, had a business in construction and the family was well off. After her maternity leave, Marina did not go to work and devoted herself to her family. The house was always clean, cozy, fresh food, and the girls under supervision. In summer, the family usually went to the sea, and for a couple of weeks to her parents in the Ural Mountains. The front door slammed, and the cheerful voices of the girls sounded. "Hi, Mom," Mila shouted, peering into the kitchen. "Wash your hands and have lunch," said Marina, dressing the salad. The girls went to change and wash their hands, and Marina set the table. She did not see her youngest daughter put a new figurine on the shelf in the living room. Lilia had been collecting figurines since early childhood. At first it was toy ones. Then she began to buy and give different figurines. The collection was displayed on a wide shelf above the fireplace, and the girl took care of the figures herself. Neither Mila, nor Marina, nor her father ever attempted to Lily's treasures. But there was no problem with gifts. Today, she brought home a new figurine. None of the adults knew that Lilia and her friend did not go to the labor class and went for a walk in the neighborhood. At a spontaneous market where they sold all sorts of things on cardboard, Lilia saw a couple of cute figurines. She had money, so she decided to buy a funny duck made of glass. The seller was an old woman, wrapped in a coat and shawl. Even though it was warm outside, May was in full swing. Lilia's friend went to look at the kittens the woman was giving away for free. "Do you want to buy something?" Slowly, clearly pronouncing the words, the old woman asked. "Do you have money?" "I do. This figurine, how much is it worth?" Lilia asked. She looked at the old woman. She felt uncomfortable. 300 rubles. The old woman spoke just as clearly, watching the child carefully. "I have something else. Well, here I do not bet." "What?" Lilia lit up. It seemed to her all mysterious. "Come closer." The girl came closer and bent down. The old woman took out of the bag a small figure. The figure looked unusual, like a man, but not quite. Snakes entangled the legs of the idol. "What do you feel?" suddenly asked the old woman when Lilia took the figure in her hands and began to look at it. "From it goes warmth. It is as if alive," whispered the girl. The old woman nodded approvingly. 200. The old woman named the price with a kind of exhalation. The girl held out the money. Because of her age, she did not realize that something was too cheap. After hiding the figurine in her backpack, Lilia found her friend, with whom they went for a walk and then quietly returned to school. By the way, the lesson was canceled and the children hung out in the yard for 40 minutes, so no one noticed the absence of the two students. Leaving and returning unnoticed in this school was easy, and all the children had long since mastered this trick. Everything had worked out strangely well. And now the figurine has taken its place on the shelf, except that it doesn't belong there at all. Ivan came home as usual around 8 in the evening. Lilia was doing her homework. Mila was arguing with her mother because she wouldn't let her go to the party. The man was already tired, and then there was his daughter with a scandal. He decided to go to the younger one first. "Hey, who's that you got there?" Lila's father walked in on her. There was a new figurine on the desk. Dad found it disgusting. "Oh, hi, I haven't thought of a name yet," replied the girl distantly. "I don't like him," muttered Ivan, pointing at the figure. "It's Ona, and she doesn't like you either," replied the girl defiantly. "How do you talk to your father?" Ivan raised his voice. Lilia silently turned away from her father. Ivan changed his clothes and went down to the living room where the showdown between mother and daughter was in full swing. Marina, red with anger and calm, Mila stood in the living room. "Will there be dinner? What is the noise, and there is no fight?" jokingly asked the man. "You're late, everything is already over," replied Marina. "Dad, Mom does not let me go out on Friday," Mila complained to her father. "Then there is a reason," briefly replied the father. He tried not to interfere in the conflicts of his wife and eldest daughter. "Always you are not interested in anything," Mila almost screamed. "I'm going to leave." "Just try," threatened Marina. With a sigh, Marina set the table and called everyone to dinner. Lilia came and quickly, silently ate in her room, which surprised her parents and sister. Late in the afternoon, Ivan, out of old habit, went around the house and stopped by his youngest daughter's house. On the nightstand beside the bed was the figure he didn't like. It made him feel creepy, and for a moment it seemed that the figure's eyes were glowing. Ivan closed his eyes, stood like that for a couple of moments and opened them again. "I thought so." "Have you seen Lilka's new figurine?" Ivan asked his wife in the morning. "It's kind of disgusting. I haven't seen it. If she likes it, let her play. But to things is careful," replied Marina. "Not like our eldest. She sulks in the morning. Come on, let her go on Friday. She is already 15, said her husband. "Think of yourself. I went to the math Olympiad at that age." "Yeah, and a year later she was dating me. Leave her alone." "We'll see." After seeing her husband and children off, the woman began to clean up. She didn't like her daughter's new figurine either. There was something creepy and repulsive about it. The idol was the body of a woman with the head of a goat. The whole body covered with scales, wings behind her back, and flames on her head. The legs were entangled with snakes. What could a child like about this creepy figure? Lilia came home before her sister from school. No, she didn't run away. It was just that the last class was canceled. The teacher didn't show up for work. Barely entering the house, the girl rushed to the new toy. She was overcome with an incredible feeling of happiness when she took it in her hands. The idol seemed to her the most beautiful creature in the world. She didn't realize that she was trapped, and there was no way out. A few weeks passed, the school year ended, and Lilia settled down at home. Mila, on the other hand, hardly ever came home. The first to notice something amiss was, strangely enough, her older sister. She watched Lilia for a few days and then went to her mother. "Mom, have you noticed what's going on with the little one? She's changed." Mila started the conversation. "In what way?" "Normal child," Marina reacted. "She hasn't been feeling well at all the last few days." "No, there's something wrong with her. And that stupid figure, she gives me the creeps," Mila started. "Mom, are you listening?" "What?" Marina really couldn't concentrate. "What's going on?" Mila recoiled. She suddenly became insanely scared. Mila, as if from the outside, looked at the house, their life lately. Lilia is behaving strangely and looks a bit sickly. Her father is always missing somewhere, and her mother is either drinking in secret or worse, but she is clearly not herself. Her little established world had collapsed. The girl resolutely went up to her sister's room to talk. Standing near the door, she heard her younger sister's voice talking to someone. Her sister's thin voice and a rough male voice were discussing something heatedly, and Mila couldn't make out half of it. From someone else's voice, the girl had goosebumps running down her body. The girl sharply opened the door to her sister's bedroom and froze. Lilia was sitting on the bed. On the bedside table was an idol figure, and there was no one else in the room. "Who were you talking to?" Mila asked her sister sternly. Lilia looked at her furtively and her gaze made her uncomfortable. Her younger sister looked at her like a cockroach. "None of your business," Lilia replied rudely. "Don't be a boor, or I'll throw this thing away," Mila pointed at the idol. "And die," replied Lilia calmly. Mila swung around to slap her sister, but she looked at her without blinking. The girl backed away from her sister in fear. "What's the matter with you?" Mila shouted. "You're not my sister." Lilia just turned away and paid no more attention to Mila. The girl secretly took a picture of the figure behind Lilia's back and went to her room. The photo was uploaded at once and the answers came one after another. After reading the first two results, Mila was scared out of her wits. The idol figurine belonged to Baphomet, either a demon or a deity, nowhere exactly specified. A symbol of Satan and evil, the abbot of the Temple of Peace, can subjugate human souls, especially weak ones, children. Endows a huge deadly force, the gift of foresight. After close contact with an idol, Baphomet can completely take possession of a person's soul, making him possessed. After reading this, Mila shuddered. Could her little sister really be possessed? And strange things had been happening at home lately. Parents began to fight constantly from the smallest things, Lilia herself in herself more than usual. Mila also has problems that in school and in life. Until late at night, the girl looked for information on how to get rid of it, but did not find it. Around 3 in the morning, Mila heard the sounds of fighting on the second floor, near her parents' bedroom. She cautiously peeked out and frightened into the wall. Lilia stood in the doorway and calmly watched Ivan, her father, finish Marina. "Well done, Daddy, she's happy," Lilia said in an indifferent tone. "Now catch your sister." Ivan, treading heavily and leaving bloody footprints behind him, went to Mila's bedroom. With horror, Mila froze, hiding behind the door. The door opened with a prolonged skip. Ivan entered and turned on the light. He was looking for his daughter. In his head, everything was mixed up, all feelings and emotions were gone, his condition resembled a deflated balloon. He noticed the socks of his slippers and jerked the door closed. Mila's scream was ear-splitting, it seemed to reverberate off the walls, filling the whole world. For Mila herself, the world shrank to tiny size, and the last thing she remembered was her sister's evil smirk. Lilia watched as her father herded the bodies into one room, then sat down next to them and put the muzzle of the gun in his mouth. A deafening shot broke the silence of the house, except that no one heard it outside the house. And late in the morning, a neighbor came in the open wicket. Further events rushed with wild speed. Already soon, the minor daughter of the deceased owners, Lilia, will be announced in search. The investigation will long search and investigate the circumstances of such a terrible deed of the father of the family, but will never understand the truth. A little girl with a pink backpack walked along the side of the road. Cars whizzed by. No one paid any attention to the child. Who is this little girl? Where did she come from? Where are her parents? Such questions should be asked by the drivers of passing cars, but it was as if they did not see the little girl. In her backpack, besides her belongings and purse, was an idol figure carefully wrapped in cloth. The girl stopped, listening to herself. Yes, it was time. She settled abruptly to the ground and sobbed. A few minutes later, an expensive car slowed down near her, from which a woman in her 40s got out and hurried to the girl. "Baby, what's wrong with you? Where are your parents?" she asked. The girl just sobbed. The woman calmed her down, called an ambulance and the police. The woman accompanied the girl everywhere because she was clinging to her with a deadly grip. The police identified her, and the girl got a beautiful name, Lilia. Lilia gave her own details. She went missing 2 months ago, after the brutal murder of her entire family. How she ended up almost 1,000 kilometers away from home remained a mystery, and the child herself as if she did not understand the questions about how she got to this area. Imagine, the girl is an orphan, told before going to bed the woman who found the girl. Her name was Inga Petrovna. She was a businesswoman, and her husband worked in a government agency and had a great career. "It's a pity about the child," Fyodor agreed, changing for bed. They had no children of their own. "Lily didn't even have any relatives left," Inga lamented. "They'll send her to an orphanage, for now she is in a detention center, but the conditions there are so terrible." "When did you have time?" was surprised by her husband. "You already have some idea." "You're right, I've got a crush on Lilia. Do you want to take her?" "I want to be a mother." They never discussed it again, but Inga already knew that her husband would find a way out. Less than a week later, Lilia was already living in a luxurious house in a forest park. Inga arranged her room, showed her the house. "And what is this you have?" Inga was interested, pointing at the figure. Who is it? This is Baphomet. Who is he? It is she, and she must be respected. Lilia covered her eyes, the demon possessing her again. Don't piss her off. I won't, baby, Inga said softly. Yes, the girl is not an easy one, and from the figure of this figure reeks of such horror that she did not even want to touch her. Time flew by and soon Inga and her husband could not imagine their life without Lilia. She became their raison d'etre, and the idol Baphomet. Lilia never remembered her parents and sister as if they never existed, and then many years later Inga, the girl's adoptive mother, was gone. Theodore had already at that time risen high. He had power and money. The only heiress was his beloved adopted daughter.